Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. Today, I want to talk directly to the introverts, my soulmates, the people who are thoughtful leaders, doing incredible work, but may not always feel like they're being seen for that. And if you've ever been someone who thinks, I don't want to self promote, I'd rather just let the work speak for itself, and I'm not the loudest voice in the room because I feel like I'm bragging, you're not alone. I was the same person. But here's the truth, your success isn't limited by your personality. It's often shaped by how you communicate your value. That's the whole reason the workbook was built, was to help people understand how to start positioning themselves with strategic language that helps them be seen in a bigger, better way. So today I'm going to walk you through 3 powerful shifts that will help you if you identify as an introvert, or you may want to share it with someone that you work with. So the first shift is stop underselling yourself and start translating your value instead. One of the challenges that I see with introverts is that they do high impact work, but they talk about it in low impact ways. And I know that I definitely did that. I minimized a lot of the things that I was doing and my team was doing, and I devalued all those great things that we were working on. So, much like me, you might be doing this, focusing on tasks instead of outcomes. You might say, I'm working on improving a process, but instead, think about what leadership needs to hear. They need to hear why that matters, why it's valuable. You have to think about what is it that your leadership cares about. And if you can come from that place when you're talking about it, they can hear it so much more. So you always have to think about, what does my leadership need to hear in order for them to see the value and the impact that it's making? So it might be something like, in this example, I'm working on improving a process. Okay, so what did you do to make that happen? So I influenced the team to come together with new ideas to improve the process. And because of that, we've improved efficiency by 30%. Something like that. Think about what they care about. And usually it's around time, money, efficiencies, decision making, negotiations, something that you have influence over that you're moving forward. That's a completely different message for them to hear from you, right? Because standing out isn't talking more, it's about translating what you're already doing into language that highlights the impact. So instead of saying something like, what did I do? I want you to ask yourself, what changed because of what I did? You're making something happen because of an influencing conversation, a decision that you move forward, something that you helped change. That question elevates everything in front of your leadership, and they see you in a completely different way. The second one is visibility is not self promotion, it's actually strategic communication. Again, the workbook was built to help people really start to think about strategic communication by giving them templates and scripts that they can follow and different frameworks that they can use. Because to me, if you can be more strategic in your communication, that also helps you to be heard. So let's think about what might be holding people back. And some of these are definitely my own experience as well. Visibility is not about bragging. I didn't do anything around visibility for quite a long time because I believed the only way to do it was to brag. And that was just not something I wanted to do. So you have to think about, where can you start to show up and share information that is making your work visible and usable for other people. Because if they don't understand what your contributions are, they can't advocate for you, support you, or build on your ideas and help and support you that way as well. So instead of thinking, I don't want to draw attention to myself, I don't want the spotlight on me, I'd rather just sit here and listen, I want you to think about, how can I make what I do easier for people to see, understand, and act on? That is a very different way of thinking about it, right? Because your work matters. You're spending all this time on it. Why would you keep hiding it? Where are there opportunities for you to bring your work out of the shadows a bit and to start to share it with other people? That could be just in sharing a concise update with people about what you're doing, but relating it to the business priorities. Speaking up in a meeting and highlighting something that is a key insight that you have, or asking a question that you think others might have. Following up with stakeholders to frame the bigger picture so everyone can start to see what's going on, because you don't need to dominate the conversation. I think that is the misconception that a lot of people have, and that's because you've only seen people who are extroverts in the meeting talking a lot. You don't have to be that person. You just have to be intentional with what you say and how you show up. I've seen some amazing, quiet senior leaders who can say one thing and it stops the room because they are only saying the things that matter. So you have to be thinking about where you can do that too. The third one is preparing for meetings in advance. Introverts thrive when they have time to think. I've always advised anyone who's leading introverts is to give them some time to think. They need a little bit of time to process. They need some time to think about what they want to say. So don't put yourself in situations where you're forced to come up with something on the fly. You feel caught off guard. You feel like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have prepared more. And so you get into your head and you hold yourself back and then you say nothing. So I want you to start to think about where could I come up with a list of questions that I want to use, insights that I want to contribute based on what's on the agenda, key points I want to make sure people hear. How can I make sure that what I talk about connects to a bigger priority so that it can be heard? Even just one question or one sentence is so impactful. And one little hint I'll give you is that you want to try to do it towards the beginning of the meeting because then you're not sitting there worrying about it. You have already established your voice in the room, which gives you confidence, and other people will start to hear you differently and maybe ask for your opinion later in the meeting. So you have to find ways to do it as early as possible because your confidence doesn't come from your personality. It actually comes from the clarity that you have in sharing your ideas and what you can do. Because when you know what you want to say, it's so much easier to say it. So if you can prepare in advance, it just gives you that confidence to slow down, reflect on what you want to ask or what you want to say, and just say it. So if you take nothing else from today, I hope you're going to remember that you don't have to become someone else to stand out. You just don't. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to change your personality. All you need to do is think about the value that you bring and translate the conversations that you have with people, your manager or other influencers or leadership teams. Translate the value that you bring so that they can see it. Be intentional, communicate strategically, and be intentional. And then prepare in advance so that you're ready to share whatever needs to be shared at the time that you're ready. Being quiet and more introverted is actually a strength. And I think sometimes people see it as a limitation. And I want you to see it as an advantage. You're someone who's thoughtful, you listen, you really start to connect the dots faster than maybe others who are still talking. You can see the impacts of things that are happening. You are a person that people want to talk to. So let's look at your strengths and as an introvert, how can you leverage them in a bigger way? Because that's where your influence really starts to grow and be noticed by others. I hope this episode was helpful for you if you identify as an introvert. And please share it with anyone else that you know who could really benefit to leverage the work in a bigger way and be able to share it with more people so that they can see it. Thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.